business plans, and every one of the companies was exactly the same. So we said, how do you make money with these internet companies? And we were told by this young fellow that profit's not important. Clicks are important. If you get enough clicks, the money will come. And if you need more money, you just go back out to the market in second and third and fourth money-raising thing. We said, well, we don't understand that. So we don't want to do that. We want to do what we want to do. We want to look for small companies who we buy up in the federal sector, contracting sector, integrate them, and turn this thing to a fully integrated thing that's more than $100 million if we can do it, and have this money arbitrage. So Freeman Billings Ramsey sent us to the small, classical investment banking firm with mahogany walls and everything else in Chicago. And those guys did not invest in internet companies. They invested in the team. Well, I was 60 with a pretty good-looking resume and pretty good references. The business partner had been the president of a large, relatively large for this sector, public firm in the federal federal contracting sector, and he had great references. And so therefore we sat down, gave our basic presentation, showed our team, everybody showed up, and that's when they agreed to come up with $31 million. This was despite the fact that the real money was available in the internet sector. Now, shortly after we started getting our money, the internet sector started falling apart. This infinite source of money began drying up. And the same thing happened in the telecom sector, if you recall. And so companies started disappearing. A few, of course, have got famously rich, like Amazon.com and eBay and a few others. But you could probably think of 500 that disappeared in this time frame. But indeed, what they did is they agreed to give us the $31 million based upon our team, and it based upon the simple one-line concept, and then said give us the business plan, which was 18 pages, of which 9 was on the people. The spreadsheet was about this big, about 4 or 5 rows and 3 or 4 columns, and that was it. That was the only financial plan we provided. And by the way, looked at 6 to 8 years later, we more or less followed that plan for the first 4 or 5 years until we ran into normal issues. But overall, the investment banking firm did very, very well.
Let me make a comment on that question too, though, because today is a lot different than it was then.
I was going to say, you wouldn't get anywhere right.
I sold a company back in 2000. In fact, we closed on March 26th, 2000, which is just before the bubble burst. We sold that New York Stock Exchange company to AT&T. Our board wanted to take stock, by the way, at that point. AT&T stock was $57 a share. I blocked it because I own more than 10% of the company. I was the largest shareholder. And I said, no, I want cash. And any of you know what AT&T stock dropped from during that 2000 year? Yes, it went down to single digits. Single digits. They lost 95% of the value we would have achieved, hundreds of millions of dollars. That was then. Today, venture capital is about in the same position. I'm currently going through with a couple of my companies trying to get a couple $1 million. By the way, if anyone has any money, I'd be glad to talk about angel investing. But something like 60% of the venture capital funds out there today, in spite of the fact that they say they have $100 million funds or whatever, do not have any capital to lend. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors going on. The reason is they need to keep their powder dry for the existing companies. That because of the economy being what it is, they have to shore up. They don't really want to let them go because they've got great ideas, they've got the innovation, they've got the entrepreneurship, they've got the staff, they got all the good things. But in point of fact, they don't have the business because the sales cycle typically has gone from 6 to 18 months in many industries, and there's statistics on that. But so it's an interesting situation that today getting money is very hard, and the recommendation for most startups is to bootstrap rather than to go out and waste all your time trying to go for Series A money. Get your 3 F's thing, friend, family, and fools. Try to get that kind of money. I didn't have one company that I've invested in, which was a mistake. I can tell you about 10 different mistakes. You only 10 minutes because they all talk longer than my 2 minutes.
Go ahead.
No, I won't. If I talk about mistakes, I give lectures on mistakes. Nobody wants to hear about the successes, which were nice, but they want to hear about the mistakes. But I won't talk about that. What I will say is, in point of fact, a lot of companies today have failed miserably because they went out to get capital and could not get the capital, when in fact they should have gone out to satisfy the need, and sold the product, and concentrate on selling the product, not concentrate on giving briefings to get money. The business I invested in that was a mistake is one in which they do nothing more than go out and give friends and family money. I'll call it friends, family, and fools money. Some people are embarrassed to ask Uncle Charlie to invest in their business. So this company literally puts on the lunch, has the briefing, helps professionalize the briefing, and gets you to invite your friends and family, and then puts the bite on them to invest. Okay. Second gimmick they use, which I thought was very clever, which is why I invested in them when I shouldn't have, is that what they offer is, if you will join our advisory board, we will give you this stock instead of $5 a share at $2.50 a share, because you're a member of the advisory board and we give you a 50% discount. And you'd be amazed how much money they raise for many startup companies with that little gimmick. I thought that was very clever. Unfortunately, none of those companies succeeded. Sorry. Minor detail.
Well, sometimes minor.
Yes, yeah, right.
Other comment? Go ahead, Jim.
Sorry.
I think I heard one question in the earlier sessions that resonated with me a bit. The theme that I've heard throughout the day has all been associated with the exit strategy. And I'm concerned that I'm not hearing as a theme any kind of sustainable long-term strategy, or perhaps entrepreneurship being aligned with a family business that might be sustainable and have no exit plan.
Well, intergenerational transfer is certainly a succession plan. I mean, if it's teed up with the right facts and circumstances, that's one way to do it. Another is...
But in that situation, how can there be a role for either angel capital or venture capital?
Well, I mean, that's only to get started. Angel and venture is to get started. Then, I've watched the entire private equity industry grow from nothing. We were talking about bootstrapping. That's a term that was very popular 25, 30 years ago because there was no organized liquidity for a privately owned company. Private equity, in my opinion, has really done a lot for this country because it has provided liquidity for and made it basically less risky to start a business because you've got a way that you can get out in many cases. And they provide a discipline that a lot of entrepreneurs don't have in terms of strategic planning and the quality of the boards and so forth that you're talking about here today. So those now some firms will want a 5 or 7 year horizon, and so you've got another event that will come up. Not everybody does that. I mean, if you want, and if it makes sense for the business to go forward. Interestingly enough, we haven't talked about going public, which is might be an option, but it's not as reliable today because the window opens and closes for that sort of thing, depending on the type of industry and the characteristics of business and so forth. But I think that there are a lot of financial arrangements today, including ESOPs and that sort of thing, which can keep that company independent, can allow the entrepreneur to participate as long as he or she wants to. I don't think we've ever had more choices of exit strategies than we are today. Now, the fact that we call it an exit strategy, I mean, we're all mortal, so at some point we need to get out. The company is, of course, should continue on or can continue on.